Good evening to everyone and welcome. I hope everybody's having a good evening so far. It's great of you to take time to be with us this evening to have a conversation about the Talking Stick Resort Arena and the proposed renovations to that facility. My name is Janine LeCure. I have my own company, LeCure Communications, and I'm really privileged to be invited to participate in these kinds of conversations. I also want to introduce some key folks who are with us tonight. First and foremost, of course, is our District 1 councilperson and Mayor Thelda Williams. Thelda, I know she's here. There she is, back a little bit in the audience. Thank you for being here. We have a couple other council people who we expect will attend tonight. We'll introduce. We have thank you, our District 7 Councilman, Michael Nowakowski is here tonight. Please welcome him. So glad you could make that time to be with us. Thank you. We've got members of the executive team from the city manager's office and from the council offices. We won't name everybody tonight because that will take up way more of your time than we want to spend on that, but we're very glad that they're here. We also have executive leadership from the Phoenix Suns with us tonight, and you will hear from them on the panel a little bit later on. A little bit of housekeeping. I want to let you know that we have Mario tonight, who is our Spanish translator. If you need help understanding and would prefer Spanish, pick up a headset. They're available out near where you came in at a table there, and Mario will be very happy to help you with that. We also have Kim Yannick, who is our court reporter. She's here tonight. She's not transcribing the entire meeting, but she is available for those of you who would like your comment recorded verbatim, in other words, word for word into the record. If that is something you would like to have happen, please visit Kim or flag down a member of city staff, and we'll take care of you. All the meetings, including tonight's meeting, there's another one tomorrow night, there will have been a total of 5, are being recorded on Phoenix TV, and they will be played back or broadcast on Phoenix TV, and then they'll also be available on the city's YouTube channel. So if you want to check back for information, or you have friend or family who would like to know what's going on, you can direct them there. There's also a great deal of information available on the web at Phoenix.gov/arena. You'll see and hear some of the things that we will talk about tonight, so for reference purposes. And again, if you have someone who's interested but couldn't be here tonight, that's a great place to refer them for more information. As is pretty clear by now, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide the public with information on the proposed renovation of the city-owned arena. The Phoenix City Council a number of weeks ago requested public input, and we really do want that input tonight. That's the reason for these events. Our goal is to provide background and facts to give you, the members of the public, the opportunity to share comments and to have your questions answered. As you walked in the door tonight, you were invited to fill out a comment card where you can share a comment or ask a question. You should have been able to pick those up as you came in. Is there anybody who did not get one tonight? Good. If you have one, you can turn them in over here. These folks will very kindly handle those comments and make sure that that I'm that I have the information to call on you a little bit later in the meeting. And if you didn't fill out a comment card but would like to do so, you can do that anytime during the meeting tonight. So the process for this evening, we're going to begin with a presentation by the City of Phoenix Community and Economic Development Director, Christine Mackey. She's going to provide an overview that includes the history of the building and why it was originally constructed, the economic impact of the arena over these last 30 years, the renovation needs and challenges that have brought this issue in front of us in the first place, and she's going to talk about how the proposed agreement will actually work. After that presentation, we'll open up the meeting for your comments and questions. We'll wrap up the meeting by inviting you again to check in at the information stations at the back of the room. We'll have subject matter experts from the city and from the Suns at each of those stations. So another chance to share your comments and get your questions answered. Most of all, we want your feedback. If we do not have an answer to a specific question on the spot tonight, we will use the information that you've provided on your comment card, and someone will be back in touch with you to make sure that every question is answered. Finally, we've got restrooms located back out this door from which you entered. If you go out that way, you'll see a mural. Hang a left at the mural, and you will find the ladies' room and the men's room. And please help yourself to refreshments. We've got cookies and water over here. People are not eating up all the cookies, so by all means, do please take advantage of that. And now it is my privilege to introduce the City of Phoenix Communication and Economic Development Director, Chris Mackey, to make her presentation tonight. Please welcome her.
Good evening. As Janine said, I'm Chris Mackey. I'm part of the economic development team for the City of Phoenix. And just by way of briefing so that you know, my team's job is to bring quality jobs into the city, it's to drive wealth into the community, it's to drive new development, and it's to help our existing businesses grow. So we have the privilege of working with companies all over 517 square miles of Phoenix every single day. Today, as Janine said, I'm going to kind of go through the items with you on kind of the history, where we came from, what the facility issues are today, how it's funded, and then go over the proposed transaction. It'll take me about 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So first, we'll start with the history. How many here in the room have ever been to the Suns game or a concert in the old Veterans Memorial Coliseum? Oh, thank gosh, you guys are like me. You've been here a long time. So I went to lots of events in the building back in the day. I would see the Suns game. I saw Neil Diamond. I saw Aerosmith, Styx, Billy Idol. Had my first grounding in the building. So it has a lot of fond memories for me. Well, it was built, and the Suns played in that building, and all the concerts took place in that building for quite some period of time, about 27 years. And then, not quite 27 years, but close. The building was 27 years old. In 1989, the city council at that time was really interested in revitalizing downtown Phoenix. For those of you that remember going into the building for concerts and for events, you'll remember downtown Phoenix of the 1980s. It wasn't a place that you stayed in after hours. You went to work. I worked there in 1986. I would go into work in the morning. I would get in my car right at 5 o'clock, and I would go straight home. There was no reason for me to stay in downtown Phoenix. Where the City Hall is today, there was a Jack in the Box. Where the arena and the stadium are today, there were old buildings. Just nothing happened with nightlife in downtown Phoenix. Well, that city council was very interested in revitalizing downtown. So they began to work with the Suns to get them to relocate from the Veterans Memorial Coliseum into downtown Phoenix. And just like the city council today, that city council had no desire to tax our citizens to do something to revitalize downtown. So instead, they created what is known as a tourism tax. And that tourism tax has been in place since 1989. It was created in 1989, and it's a 2% tax on our rental cars and a 1% tax on our hotel rooms. And that's the fund that built what then was America West Arena, and still funds that building today. So if we kind of go to the arena's history, we fast forward, 1989, City Council approved not only the tourism tax, they approved the creation of the Sports Facilities Fund that the tourism tax goes into, and they also approved the lease and the agreements with the Suns to build America West Arena. In 1992, the building opened, and the first Suns games were played in that building, and the first concerts took place. The lease that was written in 1989 has a lease expiration date of 2032, so 14 years from now. And when I talk to our citizens, they say to me, why are we talking about this now? This lease doesn't expire for 14 years. Why are we talking about this today? When the lease was originally negotiated, it has what's called an obsolescence clause. And what that means is the building can be claimed as being obsolete or not able to function physically or economically on July 1st of 2019, 6 months from now. At that time, the Suns, who is our anchor tenant in a city-owned building, can claim obsolescence. They can claim the building is obsolete. And it's a very prescriptive manner in which it happens. It's written into the lease, and it's written very specifically how we have to handle the claim and what we do. And as soon as they tell us, they provide us the documentation saying that it's obsolete, we then have to sit before an arbitrator. An arbitrator is selected. That arbitrator goes into the building with their team. They determine everything that's wrong with the building that doesn't allow it to function both economically and physically. And they come back to the city and they say to us, you are now 100% responsible for fixing what is wrong with the building. The transaction we have today with our anchor tenant, our proposal is to invest in the building, but our anchor tenant would also be investing in the building. But if we go to the obsolete portion beginning July 1st, it then becomes 100% the city's responsibility. Now, absolutely, the city council does have the ability to say, we don't want to put any money into this building. They absolutely have that right and responsibility. And if they do, in 2022, the Suns can leave the arena. The Suns do not own the building. The city of Phoenix owns the building. The Suns are our tenant in the building. So if the Suns choose to leave the building in 2022, the city owns a 550,000 square foot broken building that we have to figure out what to do with, that still needs significant repairs and maintenance to happen to it. Again, I'll go over, the city owns the building. The city's owned the building since 1989. In the original investment and then the subsequent remodels and renovations that have taken place in the building, the city's invested about $79 million in the building. The Suns have invested about $150 million in the building to date. So they invest in the city's real estate, and we have the building that they lease from us today. But even more importantly, they operate and maintain the building for us. So where you have the other coliseums and other arenas across the country where cities and private entities pay event coordinators to manage the building for them, they pay for the operations of the building. Let's use the Gila River Arena in Glendale where the Coyotes play. Glendale pays an events coordinator $5.6 million to manage and program the building for them, and the city of Glendale pays for the operations of the building. So our tenant actually programs the building for us and pays for all operations in the building. And to date, they've paid about $300 million in operations in the building, and the city of Phoenix has paid zero. So they do a very good job for us in programming the building. So now let's talk about how the facility is funded. So first, in 1989, the city council created the tourism tax. Just as I said, just like the city council today, they don't want to burden our citizens with a tax or with managing or running a building. So the existing tourism tax is 2% on rental cars and 1% on hotel rooms. On the rental car side, 93% comes from outside the state of Arizona. On the hotel side, 88% comes from outside the state of Arizona. So unless you rent a car and unless you stay in a hotel room, and I do, sometimes I'll go to a concert in downtown Phoenix, or my family and I do a staycation at one of the resorts or hotels in Phoenix, then I'm paying for the building. If I don't rent a car or I don't stay in a hotel room, not a single cent of my money goes into that building. That existing tourism tax funds the mortgage on the building. So in 1989, bonds were issued on the building. And that bond, think of it as a mortgage. Just like I went to a bank and I got a mortgage and I make my payments on the building. And the city's made their payments on this building since its original inception out of this fund. It's never gone to any other fund. And in the worst of SB 1070, in the worst depths of the recession, this fund always had enough money to pay the mortgage and always had enough money to pay any major capital improvements. And it's done other things. It has renovated the Maryville Baseball Stadium, it has purchased land on the Biosciences campus, and done other things in downtown Phoenix. And that lets us own the building. So we have this building that has events, it has concerts, it has things that happen in it each and every 3 days in the city of Phoenix. And that generates a sales tax. So when I buy a ticket, it creates a sales tax. When I buy a drink in downtown Phoenix, it creates a sales tax. When I buy my dinner in downtown Phoenix, it creates a sales tax. And that creates a revenue that then goes into the city's fund that the city council programs every year, and they use it for police and streets and fire and libraries and parks and other things that happen in the city. So what I find is interesting, and I've had a lot of conversations with our citizens since the city manager asked me to start visiting with all of you, about it's not an either or. It's not that we can have the building but we can't have streets and parks. If we don't have the building, we can have streets and parks. One is absolutely closely related to the other. This building drives revenue into the city coffers that pay for the things that our citizens enjoy. In fact, it's the only city building that goes into the city general fund budget that actually generates a profit. So you think of the airport generates a profit, but it goes into everything that's controlled by the airport. That's the law, that's federal law. It goes into everything that generates money for the airport. So this is our building that actually generates revenue positive for the city of Phoenix. And I'd like to take just a moment. Councilwoman Felicita Mendoza just joined us at the back of the room. If you could help me welcome her. So next, there are about 130, there are a little more than 130 ticketed events each and every year that happen in that building. And what that means is every 3 days in downtown Phoenix, we are bringing 14,000 people into downtown Phoenix to spend their money to see downtown Phoenix and to enjoy our facility. As you can see, some of it's the Suns. About 30% of what happens in the building is the Phoenix Suns. 70% are other events that happen in the building. And in fact, when I was chatting with the Suns at one of the meetings, they had mentioned that where they play 41 games in the building every year, there were more than 80 youth basketball events in the building that they sponsored during the year. And you see Garth Brooks, you see the WWE with SmackDown Live, and the money that that generates into the building. You see Selena Gomez, you see Marvel Universe. The arena, I highly recommend you don't get ready to go into it right now. They're freezing it for Disney on Ice. It is so cold in that building. I go in with a jacket when I have to go in because they're freezing the building right now. But this was something I didn't know until I started working on visiting with all of you, and that's the number of community events that take place in the building. So while we have 130 ticketed events, there are 200 nonprofit and community events that take place in the building every year, from youth basketball to educational programs to faith-based programs. In the bottom middle, you see Brittany Griner. She did a fundraising of donations of shoes for the homeless. And these are things that take place in the building each and every year. Now the reason I'm here, economic impact. And I'm going to put this down for 1 second just so I can grab a little tickle here. I talk for a living, and so by the end of the day, I'm usually pretty ticklish in my throat. Now the reason I'm here, the economic impact of the building. So as I told you, my team's job is to drive jobs and drive revenue into the community. And you see some of the restaurants and bars in downtown Phoenix that are very much alive when we have events going on in our downtown. This building brings $182 million in economic impact into the building. It's important to note that this is not the total economic impact of the building, but this is the economic impact of people coming into downtown, buying tickets and eating and staying and doing things in the downtown market. We see about $13 million in that sales tax that comes out of the building that goes into the city coffers that our mayor and council members program each and every year to provide the services that our citizens deserve. We see $14 million that go to the state and county in taxes every year, and that's not including about $8 million in sales tax on ticket sales. And jobs, my favorite subject. There are 380 jobs that exist in the arena full-time. There are 700 part-time jobs and 100 seasonal jobs that we don't have listed up there. But even more importantly, there are almost 1,200 jobs around the city that are supported by the arena. So it might be a plumber who has people who go out and work on the arena. It might be a garage door roll-up company who have people that go out and work on the roll-up doors. It might be cleaning staff and others who go work in the arena and have jobs because of the arena. Our facility's old, and I am much older than the facility, so 27 years in my life does not seem very old, but our building has had 40 million people in our building since the day it was built. And that is a lot of people flushing your toilets over the last 27 years. Some of the more awful pictures you see up front, I will show you on the top left. That is actually a plumbing waste pipe that we had to cut and do an emergency repair on. It is so full that it could no longer be snaked, so it had to be removed. And I apologize, it's dinner time, it's way too graphic, I'm so sorry. You look at the picture on the upper right, it is the line for the escalator. The escalator has been repaired and maintained, but it's 27 years old and it's nearing the end of its life. The bottom corner picture you see are the pinch points in the concourse. So if you're lining up at the ladies' restroom and you're lining up to buy a libation or a drink or your nachos or a hot dog or something, there isn't enough room for the lines and for people to pass around the concourse to get back to their seats. When we look at the technology, our building was built in 1992, and you'll remember that was the era of AOL dial-up with the woo, 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 you've got mail. That's not the way things operate today. We are all in our seats tweeting, we're taking pictures, we're live streaming. We have the media who now doesn't film it and then post it after. They're live streaming while they're in the building, and we need an upgrade to our security and communications in the building. Things as very concerning as our American with Disabilities Act requirements. This building was built in 1992, and it met every requirement that was in place at that time. But new requirements are added each and every year through the ADA, and we need to, during the remodel, should council consider to move it forward, need to upgrade the ADA requirements. Now we're going to talk through the proposed transaction and what staff is recommending for council consideration. The first item is the city would invest $150 million. We'd do just like we did originally. We'd get a mortgage for the $150 million, and we would have the Sports Facilities Fund, the tourism tax, pay that just like it has since 1989. It's not a new tax on our citizen. It's not even a new tax on our tourists. It's the exact same tax that's been in place since 1989. Some of you go out of town for the summer and for weekends, and you stay in hotels. You're paying a tourism tax in those hotels, which is paying for those cities' sports facilities and convention centers and things that are there. The same way when people come into Phoenix, people that live outside the state are paying for our buildings. It's the way that most cities do these types of buildings. It's also important to note that our money would only pay for physical infrastructure on the building. It'll pay for the pipes, our roof, our seats are in poor need of repair, our telecommunications, our security, our ADA requirements, things that we would have to upgrade with or without our anchor tenant. These things need to be fixed. They are in desperate need of renovation. It will be, as I said, paid from that exact same existing tourism tax that's been in place since 1989. That money would also put $2 million a year into a reserve and replacement account, and council's very wisely considered that being added so that we never have to go outside anybody. If there's if the pipe breaks and we need money to fix the pipe during that period of time, we've got a reserve account that we can fix our things with. And the city will remain the landlord. Nothing will change from the way it's been since the day the building was built. The Suns will remain our anchor tenant in the building. The Suns will pay $80 million plus any cost overruns. And any of you that are here from the construction field know there's always cost overruns. But they have to absorb anything that happens outside the contract, outside of our $150 million. So one of the things I neglected to tell you previously is to date, the Suns have paid the city. Not only do they pay all operating, and not only have they put the money into the building, but they've paid us just over $30 million in rent since the beginning of the lease together. That's going up. And over the next 15 years, they will pay the city $60 million in rent over the 15-year period. They'll be required to build a new practice facility somewhere in Phoenix. And why that's important is it gives us room, as I showed you kind of that pinched concourse, I showed you those other things that need to happen inside the building in a renovation, but also think about 1992. There were no women referees in 1992. We don't have locker rooms that can accommodate women referees. There was no women's NBA team. So we have a locker room that's shared with both men and women, which are things that just aren't appropriate for us to do today. But more importantly to the city is by moving the Suns out of the building for their practicing, it gives us the opportunity to program the building more events during the day when the Suns would normally be practicing. So now where we have 130 events a year, we can increase that number of events that happens in the year. Not only that, but the new practice facility, they will pay property tax, it will be somewhere here in Phoenix, and that investment will go into the city of Phoenix. They will remain a tenant until 2037 with a 5-year renewal, so they will be able to remain in the building till 2042. And they will continue, as they have since the beginning, of paying 100% of operation and maintenance in the building, and our citizens will be responsible for 0 operations and maintenance, just like the beginning, since the beginning. If we look back at what the capital investment split has been on this facility since its original construction, we are very close to 50-50. The original investment from the city of $79 million, the Suns 150, and now we look at this time, ours would be 150 and theirs would be a minimum of 80. So you see us since the beginning of the time on the city-owned building being pretty close to 50-50. This was not the first, we don't immediately go and say this is our only option. We reviewed a lot of options of what we could do with this building before we went to City Council with our recommendation, and they so thoughtfully asked us to come out to the community and get the community's input on what all of you thought. So let's talk about it going obsolete. If the building is claimed as obsolete on July 1st, we go through that long prescriptive process. We go through that long process. If the City Council chooses, and they absolutely can choose not to invest in the building, the Suns can leave in 2022. We then have a building that's vacant that we still need to put the improvements in. We still need to put the renovation and repairs in. What we're doing is not because of our anchor tenant, it's because we have an old building. And the Suns could choose to leave in 2022, and then we have an empty building. And if that happens, what about the city operating it as its own event center? We could do what Glendale's done. We could hire an event programmer. They could program the building for us. We could pay them to program the building, and then we would have to pay for all operations and maintenance inside the building. It would take time for a new operator to get things up and running, so we'd see things all happening pretty slow. I think it's also important to note that to turn it from an NBA arena and now just do concerts and events in the building, we still need to make an investment of somewhere between $130 to $180 million. Remembering why the number's higher is right now our partner, our anchor tenant, the Suns, is willing to invest $80 million into the fan-facing items. Where the city's on public infrastructure, the Suns would do all of the fan-facing items, the suites, the art, the niceties to have in the building, and the things that really make it a really attractive building. Now it would be the city that would have to improve the whole building. We could sell the building. That's always an option that we have, and I'll kind of walk you through what that might look like next. So what I have in front of you is the Suns, city-owned arena in the big yellow kind of misshapen box, and then a full city block of development as an example there. So if we leveled the building, we've seen, and we've not had an appraisal done, but we've recently sold sites right around this arena site, so we know what those comparables look like. And they'd be anywhere between $110 and $153 a square foot. Sounds like a lot of money. On a 9-acre site, you're looking at about $60 million that the city could be able to sell the land site for. We know that to demolish that building, it would take about $15 million are the cost estimates we've received to demolish the building. So now we're down to $45 million that we could then sell the site for. If you look at the full city block development that's there, that full city block development drives annually about 20% of the revenue that we see coming off of the city-owned arena today. So if you could fit 3 of the city blocks on the arena site, we would get about 60% of the revenue that we get off of the arena today, and that would be over a significant period of time. You don't build a full city block in a year or 2 or 5. It takes a significant amount of time, and at the end of that time, if you look at a decade of development, it could be as long as 30 years from now. If you look at that time, we still wouldn't be receiving the revenue that we receive today off the city-owned arena. So kind of in summary, first, as a reminder, it's a city-owned facility. If the Suns leave or the Suns stay, it's a city-owned building that we need to figure out what to do with. It is paid for by tourism and has since the beginning of time. It has $182 million economic impact, and that is not a full economic impact. That is a very limited economic impact that we did just to show the revenue that comes into downtown because of it. $13 million to the city in taxes into our coffers that the council programs for police and fire and parks and streets. About $14 million to the state and county each and every year, and jobs that are created in the building. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Janine. She is going to ask our panel of experts to come up, and we're going to answer all the questions you might have. Thanks so much for having me tonight.
I'm going to grab a little sip of water too. Can I share? Thank you. Thank you. That's all right. That's all right. No, I don't do the kind of talking you do, but I got a little bit of a scratchy throat as well. Thank you so much for that. Now is the part where we open up the meeting for your comments and questions. I noticed that we did have a few folks that arrived after we started. Welcome, first and foremost. If you filled out a comment card, you should have received one at the back of the room. If you didn't, let us know. Anybody with a badge on is city staff and they can help you. Make sure to fill out that card, whether you want to speak or not. We would like to make sure that your comment is included. And on that point, all the comments tonight will be officially recorded as part of the record for this meeting. If you filled out a card, whether or not you checked the box indicating you wanted to speak, you don't have to. Either way, your comment will be included in the report that ultimately goes to the members of the City Council for their consideration. I mentioned the court reporter. Kim is over there to help you if you would like your comments recorded verbatim. And anyone who needs assistance with Spanish speaking, Mario is here to give you a hand. So just let us know. Now, for those of you who would like to provide public comment or ask a question, that process is about to start. Let me go over a few of the ground rules. Asking that you come up to this microphone, located right in the aisle there, right in the center of the room, to share your comment or to ask your questions. We are going to enforce a time limit tonight, and the reason for that is we want to make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to speak if they choose to and to have their questions answered. You'll have 3 minutes. The timer is right up here. It's pretty obvious when you go to a yellow light, which means you've got about 30 seconds left to speak. I'm also going to help you with that. If you get down to 30 seconds, I'll let you know. It makes a pretty obvious noise when your time is up, so I don't think there'll be much question there, but I'll help you with that too. Now, if at any point your comment has already been shared or your question has already been asked, please feel free to just let me know and we will make note of it and then move on to the next comment or question. And a reminder, if we've got any questions asked tonight that we can't answer on the spot, we will follow up with you and get the answer to you. Now I'd like to invite up our panelists. We've asked several key staff and members of the Suns management team to join us. First up is Denise Olson, the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Phoenix. Denise, welcome. Thank you for being here. John Chan is also joining us. John is the Director of the Phoenix Convention Center. Also with us tonight is Jeremy Legg, Special Projects Manager for the Convention Center. I'm very pleased to announce Jason Rowley, the President and CEO of the Phoenix Suns. And we also have Jim Pittman with us tonight, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the Suns. Please welcome everybody for being here. Now, we do have a limited number of comment cards tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and issue a last call. If you have not already turned in your comment card to speak, please do so now so that we can get you in the queue and make sure no one is missed. First up is Robbie Joan, who has asked not to speak, so I will ask the questions on the card here. What capital expenses have been collected for the past 30 years for upcoming repairs? And second, how much money does this amount to?
So over time, as some of Chris's slides had indicated, life to date, the city has put about $80 million of capital into the facility, and the Suns have invested approximately $150 million. One of the sources of that capital is what's called a renewal and replacement account. So it's kind of a piggy bank where some of the arena revenue always goes, and it's set aside to pay for future capital repairs. So as things break, there's a little bit of a pot of money there to help fix those. So life to date, as the arena has aged, we have used those funds as they've come up. There's probably maybe $2 million in that account right now, give or take.
Yeah, so to date, about $18 million has come from the arena into that renewal and replacement account, and we've used about just a little over $16 million of that. So there's about $1.7 million or $1.8 million remaining currently, but there are a couple of ongoing small projects that are going on right now.
Thank you. Layla, Helping Hands for Single Moms, has asked to speak.
Hi, so I'm the program director for Helping Hands for Single Moms. I'm here to speak for the Suns and just talk about how they have impacted our nonprofit organization along with hundreds of others here in the Phoenix area. Our organization provides scholarships for low-income single moms. Over half of those turn around and become nurses out into the community. And the Phoenix Suns have provided many gifts for holiday season, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tickets to the families that we serve so their children can go out and see games. They provide Thanksgiving dinners, I mean numerous things for the moms in our family, Mother's Day events, you name it. They just completely have been involved, and in turn we turn back and give back to the community as well. Another person that we are in business that shares the same office as we do is Back to School. Back to School clothing also is a big recipient from the from the Suns charities, and they help over 25,000 kids each year as well. So we really appreciate the impact that Suns charities do for our organization. Thanks.
Thank you. Ken Baker has asked to speak.
Hello, I'm just a private citizen. Enjoyed the stadium. Was a contractor of work to maintain facilities like Banquet Ballpark, America West, now Talking Stick. The presentation was spot on, so you answered a lot of my questions. I think the public shock of millions of dollars in budget numbers kind of freaks lay people out, does me. So I think if you just present what you have, I think it looks good. It sounds to me, and the question I have, I forgot what I wrote down, is you're not looking to build a brand new arena. You're looking to renovate and upgrade, bring everything up to specs to the current year, correct? And then you're basically, it sounds to me like you're doing what you did in 1989. You're coming together and having another 30-year lease. Is that basically what the projection
That's,
is?
the term isn't going to be a full 30, it's actually going to go out to 2037, but then an option on top of that, so ostensibly you could go 24 years, or 22. He's the math guy, I rely on him. Your point about the kind of the sticker shock, that's a very fair one. I think for anybody who's looking at dollars, you hear numbers like 150 million or 230 million, and that's an astounding amount for anybody, right? And I completely understand that. I think what's important to recognize is that if you're in the construction business, I mean, you know that costs obviously every year escalate, right? Year over year, but a new building of that magnitude right now would range anywhere from 500 million to as much as $1.2 billion or so they're spending in Golden State. So when you look at the cost that you'd be absorbing for anybody, whether it's a municipality, private company, whatever, to do a new building compared to what we're looking to do for a renovation that we all believe, the Suns and the city, having negotiated this over the last couple of years, feel that we've really arrived at a resolution that's the most economical, the resolution that gets the community what it needs going forward, satisfies the needs of the MBA in terms of what the standards are that we need to satisfy to continue operating in the building, satisfies the needs of the promoters and the shows that need to come through the doors, because as time has gone on, those requirements have gotten, these shows are bigger and bigger, and what they require of the building is not what it was back in 1992. So yes, the number it's a big number. There's no question about it. But when you look at in the context of what these buildings mean for a community and what it would take to do a brand new one, it's actually, I think, a very reasonable and efficient way of doing it.
Okay. Well, I think if you promote that you got skin in the game, you're not looking to negotiate your way out and moving on, and just present that you're not looking to build a greenfield building over here. We're going to take apart a parking structure and build a new arena because we want the latest and greatest. I'm for maintenance, upgrades, and keep things going. 30 years to me is not a long time to me, but I know in the entertainment world and industry, it's probably quote unquote obsolete. So,
Mr. Baker, go ahead.
There's also something to be said about kind of history and memories.
Right.
I guess I'd like to ask this question. How many people in the room right now have been to an event at the arena? So that's a lot of memories right there, and this is just a small sampling, right? So you think about 30 years of activity, 30 years of a community coming together, and I know for us at the organization, in particular, that building actually, we spend more time in that building than we do at home with our own families. And so the idea of being able to take something that has become somewhat iconic for Phoenix and for downtown, and to be able to refurbish it, there's some, this is a financial decision for everybody, but there's also some emotion attached to it as well. And I think for us, that component of it is actually, it's important.
That's good. Well, I appreciate the presentation.
I think it covers what you had on your
I
card.
don't know, what did I ask? I forgot. Probably wrote something down.
You had asked, does infrastructure need to be replaced or reconditioned after 30 years? I think that was answered well. The infrastructure should be maintained to meet 1992 code and performance. Reconditioning for more economical approaches, I think, is what you meant there. And renovations should be borne by the tenant.
Yeah, I was saying that, and you guys just answered it, your upfront face, in your face is what you're covering. If you explain that to people, then it makes sense, and I think it'd be fair. I don't think you'd have I don't think there was an uproar, but I think there was a kind of a deep breath of the city council and the taxpayers. I think somebody got hit with some. But I think you guys have done a good job, so I'll stop.
Thank you. The next question is anonymous. If a sports facility fund was started in 1989 for renovations, why do we need a tourism tax to fund the renovations now?
So just to provide that clarity, the Sports Facilities Fund is the account, just like your bank account. Just if you had a Wells Fargo or a Chase account, it's the bank account, and the tourism fund, the tourism tax, has always gone into that bank account. So the account it was named in 1989 the Sports Facilities Fund, but it's kind of the holding bucket for the taxes, the tourism tax that's gone in since 1989 to go into. So they're one and the same thing.
Thank you. Don Dassiger has asked to speak.
So soon, thank you. I've been trying to eat my $230 million worth of chocolate chip cookies to get my value, and it seems I have a long way to go. I oppose the use of public monies taken coercively, because you don't have a choice to not pay taxes for things that are not absolutely essential for safety and the well-being of a community or a society. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Molina.
Hello. I just want to say I think this deal is a great deal. The city needs to maintain the assets that it has, and this deal does that with the help of the Suns. So I think this deal is great in that what we don't know would happen if we don't do this deal, all those scenarios would end up costing the city more money and less revenue. So this is a no-brainer in my opinion. And if it does go into arbitration, I think there's no doubt they'll be considered obsolete when you look at new arenas or renovated arenas in the last few years, like Madison Square Garden. I also want to say that there's been so much momentum downtown the last few years. I would hate for that to slow down, because I think if this arena deal does not go through, it'll absolutely shut down if the Suns leave downtown Phoenix. And there was a point that someone made last meeting about, well, it doesn't matter if we have this arena because everyone will still spend the same amount on entertainment, and that's still sales tax to Phoenix. But there's people in Mesa, in Tempe, in Gilbert that's come to Phoenix for these events, and that would be essentially pulling money away from Phoenix into these other ones if we don't do this. So I really hope that this deal goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carl Gentles.
Mayor, City Council, and staff, thanks for having me. I do have something I do want to read into the record, and for the court reporter, clean up my grammar, please. Thank you. My name is Carl Gentles. I'm the Executive Director of the Back to School Clothing Drive, an Arizona nonprofit that's been around for 51 years. We serve Title I public elementary schools, 25,000 kids each and every year. So the City of Phoenix and the Suns have been immense supporters to us, and we are here to support them as well. Look, I live in District 1, that's 30 miles north of here, and I work in downtown, but it should know that my son went to school right next door here for elementary school and for middle school, so heavily invested in this neighborhood as well. Now, while the arena is not in my district, it's an important part of my family's social, cultural, and professional life. About 30 years ago, the voters decided to build an arena to benefit our city, the downtown, and for use by our basketball team and a multitude of other events. They knew at the time it would cost money to renovate the building, just like any commercial building or our own personal house. This is just on a larger scale. The $150 million renovation, the cost to the City Council is considered, was anticipated and pre-funded by tourist dollars and not by us. And so we need to spend the money. It's been planned, and we're here to do that hopefully today. On top of this, the Phoenix Suns are spending $80 million in enhancements to our building, and they'll be responsible for any cost overruns, as well as building a new practice facility. And look, my wife and I own rental properties. I wish I had that deal where the tenant and the renter were paying half of my costs. That'd be fantastic. Usually it's about $100 that they pay, so anyway. I'm pleased to know that the net revenues also and the direct sales go directly into the city's general fund to support police, fire, streets, etc. And it's not an either nor proposition, so I really do appreciate that. And as a side, by the way, some of that general fund might be used to keep centers like this one open and the one by my house open for working people that want to work out before and come to the facility before they go to work. So that's another way that money could be used. The direct and indirect costs to nonprofits is immense. As you heard, we serve 25,000 kids. The city's been immensely supportive over those years, and the majority of those 25,000 kids are City of Phoenix kids, and so that's why we're here standing in support of this.
We're down to about 30
initiative.
seconds.
Finally, let me leave you with this analogy. When you go to a restaurant and you enjoy the food, you enjoy all the drinks, and you spend 3 hours, in this case it's 30 minutes, you don't just stand up and walk away and not pay the bill. And that's the same thing here. It's the same concept. So with that, I thank you. I support the city, I support the Sons, and I appreciate their support of our organization. And if I could, can I ask one question?
Of course.
I do have a question for Mr. Chan, if I could.
Just in time.
Mr. Chan, so outside of the economic impact and the dollars the taxes raise, talk to us about the tourism impact that this, the facility has.
Sure. Thank you, Carl. That's a great question. So my responsibility is I run the convention center. I work with my partners at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and our primary focus is to attract national conventions, trade shows, and mega events like Super Bowls and Final Fours into Phoenix. So every day we are selling this destination. And I can tell you that as we work closely with meeting planners and event organizers, I have a team in Pittsburgh right now as we speak that are at a meeting and convention planners conference selling Phoenix. So as we work with these people, the things that they tell us that are very important to them when they are selecting a location to bring their event or host their convention, they want an airport that is convenient to get, easy to get in and out of. They want a downtown that is walkable and safe, but probably the most important thing is that they are looking for a vibrant location to host their events. They want restaurants and bars and entertainment, comedy clubs and places to go bowling. Those things are very important to their attendees because they are spending on average 3 to 4 nights in Phoenix. So they're looking for ways to spend their money in Phoenix, and we want to help them do that. So last thing, Chris talked in her presentation about the extending this deal to 2037. We have national conventions and trade shows that are booked and contracted as far out as 2032. The Super Bowl is returning in 2023. The Final Four is returning back in 2024. So having a renovated stadium, arena, with an anchor tenant is going to be vitally important to our ability to continue to sell this destination and to bring that business into the city of Phoenix.
Thanks.
Thank you. Tim Montemayor. Tim, did I just massacre your last name?
No, you are
Okay.
superb in all ways. Nice job.
I usually pay for that kind of attention. Thank you.
You're welcome. Indeed, I am Tim Montemayor. I live in District 8. I host a talk show every morning on 1580 The Fanatic. And today was a very good day for me because much to my surprise, I found in my email inbox a brand new poll. And I've said the tragedy in this whole process is the lack of information, the misinformation, and the general lack of education about this. A month ago today, there was a poll that came out that said 66% of voters did not want this to go through. They were against it. This is a poll by the city of, or excuse me, Greater Phoenix Chamber, along with OHPI. And the difference in this poll is they actually got on the phone and talked to people. Live people, believe it or not, live people called live people and spoke on the telephone. And they eliminated the robocalls, and they talked to likely voters. Likely voters meaning they participated in at least one of the last 3 elections. Before they informed them of the funding mechanism we've talked about tonight, 52% of them were against it. Then they informed them of how this was being funded, no new taxes. 49% are for it. It's a complete flip when you educate the people about what the building does and how the renovation is going to be paid for. This has been out, what, 3 hours for everybody who knows? If you want to see it, I'm holding it. I'm happy to email it to you. It's in my email box. This is really important. Here, take it. You're welcome to have it. It's critical that we educate ourselves. I live in this district. I spend money downtown. I love going to Suns games. I love going to Disney on Ice next week in the cold building. Like, I do this stuff, and I moved here for that. So I'm scared of that. But the bottom line is, do people realize this is a $500 million swing? 2 weeks from tonight, there's a vote today for the council. It's a $500 million swing. Do you realize that annually this building pumps $194.8 million into the economy in impact and tax? They paid $60 million in rent. Guys, this isn't like a small number. It's $500 million. That's $500 million. That's not a small number, that's a big number. And the thing that really scares me is I've talked to, and I'm thrilled to see my council person back. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that, because I've called people, and there's a lot of people who don't understand
30 seconds.
how much this building puts into our economy. And you know the other thing? They don't have a way to replace that money. They have no idea. If we don't renovate this building now, the city's on the hook for probably $200 million, all on our own, and $194.8 million annually. That's scary, because in this economy, how do we replace that? Thank you. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you. Franklin Olivieri.
I'm in support of the Talking Stick Resort Arena renovation. I think a lot of jobs depend on it, the local businesses, and I'm asking the Phoenix City Council to please vote on this and vote yes. And that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Haller, the board chair of the Phoenix Community Alliance, and appears also to be a partner at Quarles and Brady, has asked that her comment be read into the record. Downtown has seen dynamic growth over the last 30 years, coinciding with the operation of the arena, with the Suns as the arena's anchor tenant. This is similar to a neighborhood shopping center with a grocery store as its anchor tenant. The shopping center and the neighborhood benefit greatly by the operation of the anchor tenant and are devalued and become distressed if the space becomes vacant, underutilized, or obsolete. We must stay the course toward becoming a vibrant urban area where people want to live, work, and play. A renovated arena occupied by its anchor tenant, the Suns, is critical to this success. PCA supports the agreement with the Suns. Thank you. Luis Enriquez.
Good evening. My name is Luis Enriquez, and I am representing myself as a resident and also as a representative for Neighborhood Ministries. First of all, I've been a member of this community, South Phoenix community, since 1977. I grew up here. I went to the madhouse of McDowell in basketball since it was, on 19th Avenue and McDowell. When I grew up here, as I started growing up, and I'm a resident by choice here, but as I was going to high school, my gateway to South Phoenix was gravel pits and garbage dumps. All through the South River project, if you went, you had the 7th Avenue dump, the 19th Avenue dump, the Central gravel pits, the 7th Street gravel pits, the 27th dump. This was our experience coming to South Phoenix, to our home as young people. When we went to downtown, there was nothing there for us. In the 1980s, there was nothing. The only thing that we did as young people was do lowriding cars from Buckeye all the way to Baseline, and that was our entertainment because there was nothing for us to do, okay? So when I've seen the growth of the investment of the Phoenix Suns, but not only that, it created hope for us young people. We would then now have the opportunity to go see some real stars, there. We would be able to drive not far to go and to go to all the different events that the Phoenix Suns provided. So, for me, it's very important that we keep the Phoenix Suns here, that we keep the stadium, because you guys are part of us. We're the big familia, and you're part of the familia here, and you took a risk to go to downtown when there was nothing there. So now we have to come in and help you and support you because you supported us. Now, as Neighborhood Ministries, we're on 19th Avenue and Van Buren. one of the poorest neighborhoods in all of South Phoenix. And you're one of our greatest supporters. You know, your president, your owner came
30 seconds.
and saw our stadium, our basketball stadium, and our all kinds of things. You have been a great support, but more than that, you have given our young people an opportunity to go and experience, different events and there that they would never have. So as a resident, fully support this, and I think you know this because you grew up the same thing. We had the same experience, and we're here to support you and also our neighborhood ministries. Thank you.
Thank you. R.D. Cruz has asked that I read this comment. It says they should pay for their own renovations. It isn't a dire need. It's not like it hasn't met its potential up until now. It will suffice. Fernanda Munoz has also asked that I read her question comment. I have benefited from the Phoenix Suns charities through Helping Hands for Single Moms. I was able to graduate as a nurse thanks to the Phoenix Suns Helping Hands for Single Moms scholarship. More moms like me can succeed if we can keep the Phoenix Suns in the Valley. Thank you for that comment. Kim Gustafson is up next.
Thank you for being here tonight. My perspective comes from living in a variety of places. I go back to Minneapolis when I grew up, and I went to the old Metropolitan Stadium. I've been to the Dome for football games, and now you look and see what it cost Minneapolis to build a new place for the Vikings. It's astronomical. I went from there to Boston. I went to games in the old Boston Garden. What did they do? They had to build a whole new stadium. So for renovation, is just fiscally responsible, and it's a great idea. I like the Suns because my mentee likes the Suns. He lives on 20th Avenue in Van Buren. I also work at Neighborhood Ministries, and he loves going to Suns games. When he wanted to go to basketball camp, I made a call to the Suns, and they were willing to discount his fee to go to the camp because there was no way his family could pay for it. So the Suns have been great neighbors. I fully support this, and good luck, and I hope the council passes it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, we have called for the last comment card, so if there are anyone who arrived late or has not yet turned in a card, please do so now so that you can be included. Bill Major asked me to read his questions. The first one is, how much money does tourism tax provide each year?
Yes, the tourism tax provides about $20 million each year.
Thank you. Second part of the question is, why not change the deal to 150 million Suns, 80 million city?
I'd be happy to take it. I'm happy to take that one. So if we look at since the beginning of time, this is our building. The city owns the building, and what we're looking at for our investment is the physical investment in the infrastructure of the building. If I owned an office building and my tenant was going to stay in the building or leave the building, I'd have to make my renovations whether my tenant stayed or whether my tenant left. We're not talking about fan-facing things. We're not talking about niceties in the building that the city's investing in. With or without our anchor tenant, we actually have to make that renovation in the building and the improvements. Because we are the owner of the building, that's as the deal was negotiated, since it's physical improvements to the building.
Thank you. Chris McCormick, I'm going to need some direction from you because you checked yes and no on the comment card. Is Chris still here? That might explain it. The question is, what is Sons and Partnership annual revenue?
Well, like any private entity, certain components of our revenue and our business that relate to the arena are public record, but as a private entity, obviously that information is confidential. It's not something that we disclose outside of our own walls, and that's frankly just general business practice. But in terms of the revenue of the arena that is attributable to the city, that's public information.
Thank you.
Last year's number was about $32 million that the arena generated in the arena city partnership.
Thank you. Chanel?
If I could just add one last comment. So the city does participate in the revenue that does come off of the building. So just to be clear, the city does participate in that revenue.
What kind of numbers?
10%. We at 10% of the.
What is 10%? $3 billion.
Yeah, so let me add some clarity here. So we do have what we call the Phoenix Arena Development Limited Partnership, and that's basically the business of the arena. And so as we discussed, there's about $32 million that came from that partnership, but there's also some expenditures. And so then when you get to the net revenues, that's when we start getting our share, and we get 10% of the net. Okay, so in total, the rent that we got last year was about $1.5 million. $1 million of it is a fee that's just escalated every year, and then the other part is the 10% related to the sharing of the profit. And if you're confused about it, I'd be more than happy to talk to you in detail afterwards.
Thank you. Chanel Powell, are you still here? Hi. I'm good, thank you.
I want to thank the city and City Council for hosting this public meeting here. This is actually my second meeting I attended, and I'm happy to hear what the residents have to say. My name is Chanel. I am a District 8 resident, and I do support the renovation of the Suns facility with the understanding that this funding is no new tax. It is coming from the tourism funding. Also understanding that the Suns is gonna also invest another $60 million for renovation and an additional $80 million. My concern comes in with the generated revenues that's gonna go to the general fund. And I would like the City Council to really deeply take a look at a lot of issues that are impacting our community right now, our civilians, because with homelessness on the rise, there is no end in sight. We also could take a best practice from the city of Tempe, who has showed how they can invest in their future patrons who will end up running the city one day by investing in preschool for all City of Phoenix school districts. As a school board member, I understand the importance of maintaining the building, and I pretty much believe that the presentation and just being present to hear others' questions, it answered a lot of my questions from that standpoint. But in terms of generated revenue, we have a lot of issues that are plaguing our residents that have been neglected for decades, and I would really like to see us turn the tide by really investing in some of those issues. And in terms of the Suns, I would love to hear more, and I think the community needs to know more about things that you do to give back to the community and ways that you have invested with not only those who may be from nonprofits, but also low-income areas. So we would love to see more of that story. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, Jim, do you want to address
Sure,
that?
I'd be happy to cover a couple of them. One of my favorite programs that we put together over the last 5 years has to do with Central High School. So about 5 years ago, our managing partner, Robert Sarver, was at a conference, I think back in DC or somewhere, and he happened to be with the Secretary of Education at the time. And the Secretary of Education was kind of telling him about how if you look at dropout rates across the country, that the percentage of kids who drop out of school are highly concentrated in a small number of schools across the country. Like an unbelievably disproportionate number of kids who drop out of school come from a very small number of schools, and they kind of called them dropout mills. That was the term that was utilized for it by the Secretary of Education. And so Robert came back to the state of Arizona and said, okay, I want to identify a school that kind of falls within that category that the Department of Education has categorized as one of these types of schools. And one of them was Central High School, right down on Central, south of Camelback. So what we did is we adopted Central High School, and through that adoption, we've basically donated about $750,000 over the last 5 years. We have the number of tutoring hours that we've put in place there. Sarah, what is the number that we're at right now in terms of 21,000 hours of tutoring that we've provided to these kids, and the dropout rate has risen from in the mid-60s to graduation rate has gone from the mid-60s to 83%. So when you talk about the things that we've done in the community, that's not something that we've spent a whole lot of time out there talking about that we've done. Robert himself is an individual who doesn't really like to talk about his charitable work. I'm sure most people don't know in here that he donated $1 million to fund the Phoenix Children's Museum, all on his own, just did it, and then ran the capital campaign to do that. So the things that we do in the community, frankly, we should probably do a better job letting people know. The way we've always approached our business is that we are a community asset. Yes, we're owned by Robert and his ownership group, but at the end of the day, the Phoenix Suns are a community asset, and we have an obligation to give back to the community. And so being able to hear stories like neighborhood ministries that we've been able to help over the years, that's one of the things, frankly, about my job that I enjoy the most. When you hear, and Sarah, who's our executive director of our charity, she'll cry at the drop of a dime here on anything we talk about, because if you look at the impact that we've been able to have over the years, and look, we don't do it so that we can sit here and ask the city for $150 million, okay? I've heard that criticism a few times, and if there's one thing that's gonna get me upset in this whole process, I love people being able and willing to debate the merits of whether or not they believe that these types of money should go into public buildings. That's fine. That's a fair debate. But to question our organization's motives relative to our charitable work as if we're doing it just because we want to get something out of the community, nothing could be further from the truth, and I take issue with that. It's something that we're very proud of. It's something that our employees, each and every one, take a great deal of pride in. The number of hours that they contribute themselves, not just our players, but our employees themselves. It's something that it's really core to our DNA and something that we're all very proud of as an organization. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Darla Gonzalez.
Hello. This statement is to the city council members and the city of Phoenix residents. My name is Darla Gonzalez. I'm here today representing Arizona's chapter of Americans for Prosperity, our state's largest grassroots organization dedicated to advancing policies that improve the life of all Arizonans. This proposal in front of the Phoenix City Council is a definition of corporate welfare. The Phoenix Suns are asking that $150 million of taxpayer funds be used to renovate their private arena, and this comes less than 20 years after the council stroked a $67 million check for the same purpose. By granting this request, the Phoenix City Council is setting up taxpayers to be on the hook for more requests from the Suns, and frankly, using public funding for a private entertainment arena provides no return on investment for the city government. Our opposition to this proposal is simple. This proposal should not fall under city government's purview. Government at any level should not be in the business of picking winners and losers in the marketplace. On the flip side, private companies should not be reliant on the government for bailouts. There are plenty of worthy causes those funds could be used to support. Phoenix taxpayers should not have to carry the burden for a private organization. I stand here today to urge the Phoenix City Council to reject this deal that gives taxpayer funds to a private organization. And if you'd like more information or would like to get involved, you can visit our website at stoparenawelfare.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple of things. Again, as I said, I'm all for the fair debate. If philosophically you disagree with these types of public-private partnerships, that's fine. But what I prefer is that we actually are accurate about what the facts are. First of all, it's not a private building. It's a publicly owned building, number one. $67 million was not put into the building by the city. It was actually about $20 million, and we put in the rest. So when you look at the $150 million that we put into date, their $80 million includes that $20 million, so not accurate at all. Look, at the end of the day, you can decide for yourself whether or not you think it makes sense for the public and a private entity like us to come together and create great results for a city or for a municipality. I think, my personal opinion is that if you look across the board at these types of opportunities, there are a wealth of circumstances where this has worked out great for the taxpayers, and I think this is one of them. If we're generating $12.8 million in return for the city of Phoenix per year, that's a pretty good return. If we're generating in direct and indirect economic impact $300 million plus a year, those are things that if we're picking winners and losers, yeah, we're picking a winner, and I'm proud of that.
Thank you. Michael Zahas.
Hi, my name is Michael Zayas. I live in downtown Phoenix, and I want to thank you guys.
Apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Oh, everybody does it. I benefit from the bravery the Phoenix City Council had, you know, in the late 80s. We all have benefited from that, and as one of the guys said, the ability to efficiently use capital to renovate this stadium is the best way to keep moving forward the impact that was started. Things do get sticky and difficult when you're putting public and private entities together, but you know, people have debated whether the light rail was good, but you know, Phoenix stood by and they invested in their own community. People have talked about the airport, but Phoenix has stuck by their decisions. There's always a risk. You're not sure if it's going to work out, but this has been an investment, and like Chris said, this has been an actual return to the city every single year. And you know, the city's actual goal is to pick up the slack sometimes and pay for things like roads that don't make economic sense, but this one does. And I think the manner that it's going about is the most efficient way to use it. I'm in real estate and in investments. You know, one of the options that was put out there is if you had to level the stadium, and that has no viability. I mean, just looking at Cityscape as an example, it took years to put that together. I think all told it was over $1 billion just to build that. And that's sticker shock, $1 billion compared to $150 renovation costs. And that had all kinds of subsidies involved just to get that so that it would make sense privately to cover the cost of the land. And so in my mind, looking at the proposal that's here, it's not perfect, but it's the best option on the table, and I think you guys are honoring the spirit of the original deal, and these are good dollars chasing that original investment that was put in. Anytime you invest, there's always a risk, but I think living in downtown Phoenix, I've seen
30 seconds, Mr. Zayas.
How the impact has been worth it. And I'm hoping that in the next 20, 25 years, that wealth and the impact will continue to trickle down further into South Phoenix.
Thank you. Dr. Carol Poor. I'm not supposed to say anything personal, but Carol and I went to high school together, so I'm glad to see you.
We did, and I'm a proud Phoenix native, and I just want to say, on behalf of Phoenix Community Alliance, and I serve on that board as the executive vice president of the board, we as a coalition, we're a 35-year-old organization that creates a camaraderie with business, arts, nonprofit leaders in the greater downtown Phoenix area to have our interests in development and the vibrancy of downtown. We support this funding. And we know that this is a public building, it's a public treasure, it's an asset. It's already a public building, there's nothing new here. The funding is coming from tourism tax. All great assets need maintenance, just like we maintain our homes. But this is a public building, it is a treasure, and we support you as Phoenix Community Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Shana Tampa.
Good evening. I guess I was here at the first meeting that was held at the arena, and I spoke from a perspective of a nonprofit as well as myself. This evening, I would like to read a letter that is addressed to Councilwoman Mendoza, and it's from our executive director. I work at Genesis City, which is a nonprofit youth services agency, and we've been in existence for a long time. And we also house an alternative high school, which really deals with the most fragile youth in our community, kids who aren't making it at the traditional districts, schools like Central. So the work we do is critical, and I would like to have the opportunity to read this. Our executive director couldn't be here tonight, so I will just read. Dear Councilwoman Mendoza, Genesis City is a nonprofit youth services agency in District 8 that has served thousands of disadvantaged valley youth since its inception in 1991. Our alumni, many of whom have given up hope of ever graduating from high school, have blossomed into civically engaged community members and now work in jobs all over metropolitan Phoenix. Historically, the City of Phoenix has served as one of our most committed community partners, and every City of Phoenix mayor since Terry Goddard's tenured in the early 90s has graciously served on our advisory board. As the executive director of Genesis City, I would like to take the opportunity to share with you the pivotal role that the Phoenix Suns organization has played in our organization's mission. I have consistently witnessed the Phoenix Suns actively participate in the wise adage, action speaks louder than words. They have supported our WorkLink program, which prepares high-risk youth in the world of work. They have supported our Trailblazer program, which assists first-generation high school graduates to bridge to post-secondary education and good jobs. They have provided many of our youth with their first jobs through the seasonal work available at the arena. Talking Stick Arena's accessibility to all the major hubs of public transportation eliminates further barriers to the employment for our families that we serve. They have sponsored our Eastlake Park annual spring basketball slam, a free event that is for our community's youth that cannot afford to participate otherwise. They have supported the Genesis City Health and Fitness Program, which teaches disadvantaged youth healthy habits. They have sponsored and actively participated in our annual fundraiser, the Genesis City Blues Night.
30 seconds.
We are also very proud to let you know that in December 2018, the Suns charity surprised us by bringing the Suns Gorilla, Tom Chambers, and a large cadre of enthusiastic employees and board members to surprise us with their generous $100,000 Playmaker Award. This gift will provide the funds we need to expand our services and open doors of opportunity for the greater numbers of teenagers who are determined to end their family's vicious cycle of poverty through the power of education. Genesis City and the Phoenix Suns have shared an amazing
time has
synergy,
expired.
and we appreciate all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comments section for tonight. If you all would hang on to your seats for a few minutes, we've got a little bit of business left to do. First and foremost, please thank the panel for their input and great answers to some great questions tonight. Mayor Williams, would you like to say a few words?
I was sitting in the back tonight. Last night I sat in the front, and everyone pointed at me, so I thought I'll sit in the back and point at you guys tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming. Councilman Nowakowski, Councilwoman Mendoza's back here. It's very important that we hear what you have to say. You know, we have a current contract. It's a matter of how we honor that contract. I am supporting this. I am right up front about it. I believe very strongly it's a matter of integrity. I heard that word over and over last night. You honor a contract, and this is still an ongoing contract that says we are responsible. It is our building. How we work out the details of the amount, that's negotiable. It's also going to depend on what someone that comes in and estimates and reviews the building. We've had a preliminary what do you call them? Appraiser come in. So we have an idea what it's going to cost us. But I'm a firm believer that the Suns and the arena is the core of downtown. I think that's how we've gained all of the business, the enthusiasm, and the shops, the restaurants, I think even the college. Because the kids like the activities, whether it's a Suns game, no offense, or it's a concert. If you're down there in the evening when that's going on, I will tell you, you better be walking because your car is not going to move. You are stuck in traffic. It is fabulous. So it is a generator of income that goes into our general fund that pays for police and fire and parks and all the other services that we provide as a city. So it benefits everyone. And I want to say thank you to the panel, to you, excellent job. But most of all, I want to thank all of you for taking your time and coming this evening and telling us what you think. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your evening and grab a cookie on your way out. Did you want to say it? Here.
We'll leave the best for last. I'm Councilman Mike Nowakowski. This is actually in my district, and the arena's in my district also. There's some of my colleagues that wanted 2 to 3 meetings, and I asked for 5. I thought it was really important to hear from the whole city. And in the 5th one, in downtown Phoenix, for all those businesses and individuals that live in downtown, to hear from them all. We've heard from people that were season holders, to nonprofits, to people that disagree and agree with the contract that we're debating right now. And it's important, and we hear stories. I mean, today I heard a story that, it brought hope to people from South Phoenix. So those are the kind of things that I believe, the stories that we as council members need to hear. And I just really want to thank our mayor for allowing us to have 5 meetings instead of just 2, because it's different perspectives and different points of views from people from different parts of our city. And I just really want to thank you all for taking the time, because I know how it is to be away from your family and come to these types of meetings. And for those nonprofits to come out and speak about the wonderful programs. I didn't know about all those different programs and all the charity giving that the Sons have done. And I started doing some research, and I asked Maria Beyer for some more information on that. And it's incredible. And all the games and all the activities that go with the nonprofits that use the arenas also. So first of all, I just really want to thank our staff for all their hard work. I mean, it was something that we put upon you all, so thank you for giving up your evenings and your 5 evenings to be out here. And John Shane, I've been to 3 meetings and he answered the questions, all right. and the Phoenix Suns. The representatives didn't have to be here. We invited them, and they said, absolutely, we'll be here to answer any questions that people have. So we put them on the hot seat, and they accepted the invitation. And that's about what I call Team Phoenix approach, where we work together as a team with the community, with our staff, the city, and the private partnerships that we have out there. So thank you for being a part of this Team Phoenix approach. God bless you all.
And I'd like to introduce Councilwoman Felicita Mendoza. We have a microphone for you up here.
I just want to thank everyone for being here and sharing this evening with us. And, public processes are very important to me to ensure transparency and that accurate information has been shared with the public. So thank you again for being here. And, thank you.
Thank you. So a reminder, if you have not yet done so, please remember to visit the information stations in the back of the room. They'll cover many of the same topics that you heard about tonight. It's yet another opportunity to interact with City of Phoenix staff and with Sun staff and to have your questions answered. We are, as several people mentioned, this is 3 out of 5 of our road shows this week. Will be tomorrow evening, actually 4 out of 5, I think. Tomorrow evening we'll be at the Desert West Community Center, 6501 West Virginia Avenue in Phoenix. You can always find more information at Phoenix.gov/arena. And just a reminder that the council is scheduled to take up this issue on Wednesday, January 23rd at 2:30 p.m. Thank you so much for attending tonight.